So let's take a moment to just allow our attention to rest on the breath, just for a few seconds, and allow ourselves to take a couple of slow, deep breaths, letting our body relax. And then thinking about our motivation for being here. And we can think perhaps that our reason for wanting to come here and learn more and practice more the Tibetan debate method is so that we can sharpen our intelligence, so that we can sharpen our ability to analyze things, understand things, discern what's correct from what's incorrect, what's helpful from what's unhelpful, really master our grasp on the things that we do understand. And that our reason for wanting that is so that we can maximize the benefit that we can achieve in our lives, both for ourselves and for others. So everything we do today is with the ultimate intention of benefiting as broadly as we possibly can. So with that thought in our hearts, with that motivation, we can open our eyes if they're closed, and we can do everything we set out to do today. So nice to see you. It's so nice. All right. So welcome. For those who haven't joined us before, we've had a few sets of meetings like this, which have been, I think, a lot of fun and hopefully useful to folks. And our goal for the coming weeks is to start to get the tools of Tibetan debate down a little bit. My ultimate vision, my personal ultimate vision, is for us to have like a Western network of debate teams that we can kind of have intramural competitions and things like that. I think that would be fantastic. But for now, we're planting the seed and we're setting up the tools. My hope, we'll see. We'll kind of let things flow organically and do whatever's most helpful. But my hope is that each of our sessions we can talk a little bit. I can review some of the material, answer any questions, and that we can have some time then for breakout rooms for folks to practice some of the exercises. Then we can come back, see if any observations, any further questions, anything like that. And then there will always be homework because it's that kind of a thing, right? So okay. Before I share some of the thoughts that I had planned, have folks had a chance to get the book and read chapters 1 through 5? Like it's okay if not, like I'm not going to be mad, but just so I get a sense, like yay or nay.
I have the book, and I read some, but I have to admit I procrastinated some, so I didn't read all the way through 5. I'm on 23 right now perusing, but I have the book.
Good. Yeah, I'm not going to be the first one to cast any stones. I promise you that.
I've got the book, and I read 1 to 4 and jumped to 23 or 24 and then came back, and then I'm halfway through 5, and then it's very, very new for me, and I think I understand some of it, but I got to chapter 5 and it started speaking about this one point, abstract singular or singular abstract or something, and then I kind of went, oh, all right, okay, I don't understand. So yeah, I've got it and I've read it, but it's like what it says about being in practice and seeing something in practice and reading something. I think that's where I'm at just now.
Yes, absolutely. How about this? 2 things. One is maybe today we can focus on on chapter 4 on the comparisons of phenomena, and if folks can take the next week as best as possible to also catch up on chapter 5. Next time we'll focus on that. And one thing that I'll say, is it Ayla? Am I saying it right?
Whether it's Isla or Ayla, it's fine. Honestly, don't worry.
It's Isla? Is
Yeah.
it Isla? Sorry, Isla. So
No, it's okay.
as Isla was to Isla's point, we'll mention next time a little bit more about the abstract and collective and this and this and that. For what it's worth, there are some things in the course that I think are central for us to be able to do debate for the mechanics of it. And there are some things that are kind of really neat to get a grasp on, but we have all the time in the world because we can do debate without fully, thinking about things that way. That's one of them. That's the good news, because otherwise we would all be lost, I think. Certainly I would have been. Any other thoughts before I share some thoughts? Okay.
I have a question. Do you think Venerable Thupten Chodron, do you think that her nunnery, they're doing debate?
Yes. Sorry, but what's your question? Sorry.
So there must be more people doing it in English, debate.
Oh, that's true. Yes, that is true. Yeah, you're right. It is growing in recent years. It is something that's starting to take off. And I know Sarah J has started a program, like, I forget what they call it, but in my mind, I have it as a boot camp, type of thing. So it's fantastic. It's fantastic. I need to learn more about what's currently out there. I haven't looked recently enough. Okay. But let me start then by sharing 5 thoughts that don't relate specifically to the chapters that we've covered so far yet, but that are kind of like in general. Some of this might not fully make sense, but I promise you I'll be reminding you of this probably every time, because these are 5 things that I haven't found mentioned in so many words anywhere. And that it would have saved me like years if somebody had said this to me. So I'm hoping to save you years. Ready? So these are, I think of these as like pitfalls to look out for. The first one, and perhaps the most important one of all, is that even though, again, I've never seen this said anywhere, it's clear as day to me that in Tibetan debate, there's a big distinction drawn between when we're using a word, when we're thinking of a word as a subject versus as a predicate. Okay, here's what that means. The subject is what we're talking about. The predicate is what we're saying about it, right? Often it's like a quality or an attribute or a property or something like that, but sometimes it could be like a chunk of sentence. Like, so for example, I'm thirsty, which is true. I is the subject, thirsty is the predicate. The am, the is, that doesn't count. That's just there to connect the subject and the predicate. The water is cold. The water is the subject. Cold is the predicate, right? Let's see. The boy ran away. The boy is the subject. Ran away is the predicate. So what are we talking about? What are we saying about it? Now, why is this important? Because in all the sentences that I just gave, there's no overlap between the subject and the predicate. Like each had a clear subject and a clear predicate, which is why I cunningly chose them. However, the same word can sometimes be used as a subject and sometimes be used as a predicate, right? So, for example, like I said, the water is cold, right? In that sentence, water is the subject, cold is the predicate, right? But I could also say the contents of this bottle are water, right? There, contents of this bottle is subject, water is predicate. What I drank was water. What I drank, subject, water, predicate. Right? This implement is a pen. This implement, subject, pen, predicate. This pen is silver. This pen, subject, silver, predicate. Any questions about this so far? And then I'll tell you why it matters. Is it clear? Okay. It matters because one of the central insights, I think, that Introduction to Tibetan Debate can bring is that something can be true, things can be true of something when we're thinking of that thing as a subject, but not be true of that thing when we're thinking of that thing as a predicate, and vice versa. Again, this is probably going to sound just like word salad right now, but I want to plant that seed and I want to keep referring back to it, and I think it'll make more and more sense. And so it's very important to be very clear when we're thinking logically, and including when we're kind of debating, be very clear with ourselves whether we're thinking about whatever it is we're saying as subject or as predicate. I'll give you one quick example just to demonstrate what I mean. Mammal is, or even better, dog is a species. Dog is a species, right? Would you guys agree with that? Dog is a species, right? Okay. My dog Snoopy, it's true, I have a dog named Snoopy. Snoopy is a dog, right? So, I mean, you guys don't know, but I promise. However, I can't say for him, so Snoopy is a dog is a species, therefore Snoopy is a species. That's not true. Snoopy is not a species. Right? And why is that? Because it's true that Snoopy is a species, Snoopy is a dog when dog is being used as predicate. And it's true that dog is a species when dog is being used as subject. Follow? So if dog is a predicate, then yes, Snoopy, it connects to Snoopy. If dog is a subject, then it connects to species, but not vice versa. Snoopy, subject, is a dog predicate. Dog, subject, is a Snoopy predicate. No. Right? Dog, subject, is a species predicate. Species, subject, is a dog predicate. No. Okay? Anyway, just planting that seed. So that's thing number one. Thing number two is two words that you're going to encounter in this book and in every, just about every translation you ever read of anything having to do with Tibetan debate and Buddhist logic. And it's, if I had a time machine, I would go back in time. I guess I would do some other things first, perhaps. But then one of the things I would do is I would take whoever translated these words and I would say, don't translate them that way. Translate them somewhere, some other way, please. The words are definition and definiendum. Okay? My only beef with definiendum, just to start with the easy one, my only beef with definiendum is that nobody's ever heard that word and it's hard to remember. But we can get past that. We can learn it. We can memorize it. It's the saving grace is that we haven't learned it, so we won't get confused by it. However, definition, why did they translate it that way? Because that's not what that word means. Okay, the word that's getting translated as definition from the Tibetan does not mean definition. Here's why. Definition in English refers to an explanation of what a word means, right? A definition is in itself a string of words that explains what another word means. When we're talking about definition in Tibetan debate, that is not what we're talking about. We're not talking about anything having to do with words. We're talking about the defining qualities that make something what it is. All right. So, so for example, like what makes the substance in here, what makes it water, you know, I have to admit, I honestly, I couldn't tell you off the top of my head exactly, but I'll just go with it's wet, you know, it's moistening, right? It's wet and moistening. What makes it water. So that's that's what we would call the definition of water in this case. It's the wetness and the moisteningness of it, which is something that's in here. It's not a string of words. Okay, it's not something in the dictionary. It's something in the bottle. In this bottle, there is wetness and there is moisteningness. I wish I'd come up with a better way of saying it. Right?
Qualities, attributes.
Are these attributes?
Qualities, attributes.
Yes, they are.
Properties,
characteristics. Yes. The closest I think we can do, like with this short phrase, is distinguishing characteristics. So what are the characteristics that distinguish it as being what it is? The definiendum is the thing that has those characteristics.
So what is it in Tibetan?
Sorry?
What is it in Tibetan?
I was blanking on it, which is why I didn't say it. I'm pretty sure it's Tsenyi. But I might be getting confused. I don't know. I'm blanking on it right now. But it's if I'm right, it's MTSAN space NYID. If I'm not confusing, I might be confusing.
Here.
So how does that differ from the English then?
In English,
so in English, you would say, if you asked me, I'm quite sciencey. So so if you asked me what is water, I would say, well, there's two things. You could either say it's a liquid you drink, or you could say it's 2 parts hydrogen and 1 part oxygen. So would that be then wrong, because that's the English definition of what it is, rather than its qualities, which are what you said, which is, you know, moistness and what's the distinction?
That's a good question. So that's not that this. I got it right. Oh, yay! Thank you. The distinction that I'm trying to draw is that in English, the definition refers to the explanation, the words, you know, whereas in the Tsenyi, it refers to the actual properties as they exist in the world. So if you were to say in English, where is the definition of water? Probably the real answer is, I mean, I don't know, it's not anywhere, you know, but if anything, it's in the dictionary or something like that, you know. But in the Tibetan system, you said, where is the definition of water? You'd say, well, there's some in this bottle. It's inside the bottle. So we're talking about actual concrete properties of the object. And the actual, and the definiendum is the actual concrete object that has those properties. Okay? For right now, that might seem academic and that might seem just like a matter of semantics, but it will make a huge difference later when we see some debates that involve these things. One I think corollary that I can point out right away is that with the English understanding of definition, there's many different valid ways of defining the same thing. You can explain it any which way, right? But from the Tibetan understanding, the properties that make the thing what it is are the properties that make the thing what it is. You know, it's just a concrete thing. It's not like, oh, it could be this, it could be that. Now you could refer to it using different words, but the properties are the properties, right? Okay. and again, I'm going to move on because it's not crucial right now that you have fully grasped that. I'm just, again, putting these 5 things out there as themes that I'll be coming back to again and again. The third thing that I wanted to mention is about English renderings of sentences in the debate tradition. 2 things specifically, like when should we use singular versus when should we use plural? And should we say the indefinite article a or an before a word or not? The reason that these are questions that bear any mention is that Tibetan doesn't have either of those 2 features, as I understand it. Or at the very least, it's not required. And, it's not like it's easy enough to say things without it at the very least. And English does. And in English, those things are different. So for example, if I say, I'm just trying to think of a good example, like wind. Well, sorry. Let me just think about this one more time. Well, I'll just say this. In English, there's a difference between saying dog versus saying a dog, right? In English, you would say dog is a species, but you would not say a dog is a species, right? In English, you would say a dog is something that fits inside a house, but dog is a species. In Tibetan, you wouldn't draw the distinction that way, right? In Tibetan, you would have to differentiate those 2 things, you'd have to use more words. You'd have to say something like one dog is something that lives inside the house. And you would just say dog in general is a species. So what to do? And Daniel Perdue in the book, he makes some suggestions about what to do when we're doing this in English. But I'll just tell you this, personally, I find those suggestions more confusing than not. And I find them to be just more things that we have to remember. We're already doing so much when we're debating. And I think those suggestions just kind of add to our mental load. So my suggestion is to not worry about it too much. Just let it come out however it comes out naturally for you. Just always remember what you're actually talking about, right? Which will vary depending on whether it's being used as a subject or a predicate, no matter how you phrase it. So Daniel Perdue's approach is to try to make it match English grammar so that it comes out more naturally. Again, I think that's just a lot of mental gymnastics, and it can actually lead us to get more confused. So in Tibetan debate, if you say dog is a mammal, or say a dog is a mammal, there's no distinction, so there's no difference. But if we think about it from English grammar, we could get caught up in that, and that just adds a whole other layer of possible distinctions that we should do. So I would say it however it comes out, do whatever works best for you, right? But just always be very clear. Am I thinking of dog, or am I thinking of a particular dog? All right. Just 2 more things, and then we'll get to the meat of it. The next thing is the word is. And anybody who's old enough to remember Bill Clinton, he was onto something. Well, it depends on what the definition of the word is. In English, there's many things that the word is can mean. One of the things that is can mean is identical to. So if I say 2 + 2 is 4, I can also say 4 is 2 + 2. The president of the United States right now is Joe Biden. Joe Biden is the president of the United States right now. Like they, you know. It can also mean what in Buddhism, what in Tibetan debate we'll eventually talk about as being mutually inclusive with. You know, so for example, cats are felines and felines are cats, right? That means that whatever is a cat is necessarily a feline, whatever is a feline is necessarily a cat. But the third thing it can mean is it can mean exemplifies, like is one instance of, right? So if I say water is a liquid, right? Water exemplifies liquid. Water is an example of liquid. It's an instance of a liquid. Snoopy is a dog. Snoopy exemplifies dog. He's one instance of a dog. English is a language, right? The point to remember is that in Tibetan debate, the word is always means exemplifies. If we want to say one of the other things, we'll say it in a different way. So anytime we say is, and I'm using is, but is, are, am, was, were, like anytime we use the copula is what it's called, the linking verb, we're always talking about it's an example of, it's an instance of. There could be others, there could not. That's irrelevant. And then the fifth thing I want to mention is widely held to be the single hardest thing about Tibetan debate. So I'll just put this out there, which is how do we explain what is the actual subject we're talking about when we have a subject in a sentence. So for example, if I say the triangle, this is an example by Daniel Perdue, the triangle is the principal figure in what's his name, in Euclid's book, The Elements, right? In Euclid's book, the triangle, or even the triangle is the principal figure in Euclidean geometry. Okay, that's arguably a true sentence. Now, what do I mean by the triangle? I don't mean every instance of a triangle. So like if I draw a triangle, I don't mean like, oh, look, Euclid wrote about this particular one. Euclid didn't know that I was going to draw a triangle. So it's not every triangle. It's not every triangle is the principal figure. And it's also not one specific triangle, right? It's not like there was one triangle that is the principal figure in Euclid's in Euclidean geometry. Now in Buddhism, we would also say it's also not a generality. It's not the generality triangle. That's more complicated why we would say that. So it's interesting to try to figure out what is it that we're talking about? What is it exactly, right? The good news is that as hard as it can be to put our finger on what it is in order to explain it, we can usually rely on our intuition, I think. Basically, if we could plug that word into the sentence and the sentence would be true, that's what we're getting at. So if we say blank is the principal figure in Euclidean geometry, you could fill that in with triangle, and that would be true. If you filled it in with square, that wouldn't be true, right? So you don't need to necessarily immediately worry about, yeah, but what am I talking about? I know I'm not talking about a specific one. I'm not talking about all of them. And if I'm not talking about a general, what am I talking about? We'll get there. But And we'll talk more about that next time too, because that's where the whole thing about the concrete term subject and the abstract term subject and all of that comes in. But the important thing for now is that whatever it is we're talking about something that actually exists in the world. We're not talking about a concept. So if I say, water is wet, I'm not talking about the concept. I'm not saying the concept of water is wet, obviously. Okay, I think that's nice and abstract and confusing. So if I haven't completely lost you yet, let's talk a bit about the stuff that was actually in the book. Let me just pull up my notes. Okay. Let's talk about the comparison of phenomena.
Could I ask a quick question?
Yes, of course.
About your last one, always something that exists in the world, not the concept. I don't even know if this question is going to make sense, but part of what I've been learning is how much our mind adds to what's actually in the world. So there's that part. But also, are there not debates about emptiness, for example, and the nature of things? And so is that, I guess that's viewed as something, I don't know how to ask this, that exists in the world, right?
Good question. That's a great question.
One of those sort of twisting up my head questions. But
absolutely. I'll give you two answers. I'll give you a simple answer and a more complex answer. The simple answer is yes. Right? Like
I could stick with that one, but go ahead.
So just to explain that one is what I mean is that yes, whenever we're talking about something, like I'm going to say whenever we're debating something, but really from a Buddhist point of view, whenever we're talking about something, what's the word I'm looking for? Like not casually, but like specifically, thoughtfully, deliberately, then we're talking about the truth of the world. We're not talking about the concepts. So if I don't mean water, but if I mean the concept of water, then that's what I would say. I would say the concept of water, right? The slightly more complex answer is that I don't remember exactly how I phrased it when I said it a minute ago, but in light, like if I were expecting your question, I would probably have phrased it slightly differently, is the truth. Like I wasn't being extremely precise. I was saying a little bit more casually, because then we could get into the question of like, well, what does it mean for emptiness to be in the world versus not in the world? Like that's what I mean. All I mean to say is that we're talking about the facts. We're talking about the actual situation. We're not talking about ideas or about words or about names.
Perfect. Thank you.
Sure. So I just want to review then comparisons of phenomena, and then we'll get a little bit more interactive. But now this is the first application of one of the things I mentioned, okay? When we're comparing phenomena, this is very important. We're comparing them as predicates, always. We can't compare phenomena as subjects, not in the way that we mean the comparison of phenomena in Tibetan debate, right? We can, I'm just going to say this as an aside, we can talk about how phenomena relate to each other as subjects, right? That comes later. But we can't compare phenomena as subjects. We can only compare them as predicates. So if I say that A and B are mutually exclusive, what I mean is that the predicate A and the predicate B are mutually exclusive, meaning there's nothing that has both of those predicates at the same time. I'm not saying that the subject A and the subject B are mutually exclusive, which honestly doesn't, if you think about it, doesn't really even make any sense. But I'm not saying that that A and B don't share any predicates of their own in common. That's a separate question. If A and B are subjects, they might have, right? So for example, dog and fish are mutually exclusive. What does that mean? That means that there's nothing that you can find that has dog as a predicate and also has fish as a predicate. There's nothing that you can find that is a dog and is a fish. Whatever is a dog is necessarily not a fish. Whatever is a fish is necessarily not a dog, right? However, if you look at them as subjects, dog and fish, they have a predicate in common. They're both animal, right? So dog is an animal, fish is an animal, but so as subjects, they share something in common, but as predicates, they're mutually exclusive. There's nothing that is both of them.
Other question?
Of course.
So I guess you're talking, I guess this gets to the quality of a dog and the quality of a fish, as opposed to they both have eyes.
Right, exactly. Another way of thinking of it is, if I say, how do the two compare, dog and fish? What I'm really comparing is being a dog and being a fish. Right? Can something be a dog and be a fish? The answer is no. So let me say a little bit more, and I'm about to give you a really neat, if I say so myself, what's the word I'm looking for? Words are failing me today, guys. I don't know what's coming up. I don't know what's going on. A really neat little method for comparing phenomena, I think. When we're comparing phenomena, this is what we're looking for, okay? The first thing we're looking for is there what's called a common locus of the two phenomena, which means, is there something that is both, right? So if I'm comparing, let's say, living thing and vegetable, right? Living thing and vegetable. The first thing is there a common locus? Is there something that is a living thing and is a vegetable? And the answer is yes. You know, a tree. A tree is a living thing. A tree is a vegetable, right? It's not a sentient being from a Buddhist point of view, but it's a living thing, right? So the first question is there a common locus? If the answer is no, there's not a common locus, then the two phenomena that you're comparing are mutually exclusive and you're done. So for example, if I say, how do the two compare rubber and metal, right? So what I'm asking is there a common, first thing to ask is there a common locus between rubber and metal? Meaning, is there something that is rubber and is also metal? Now, that's not to ask, is there something that has rubber parts and metal parts? That's not what I'm asking. Is there one thing that is rubber and is metal? And the answer is no. There's
Matter.
Sorry? Matter. So good. So that's what, like, right? So that's where we remember subject and predicate. So matter is not rubber. Matter is not metal. Rubber is matter. Metal is matter. See? Just like dog is a species, but species is not a dog. Right? So is there something that you can say blank? So let's say blank. So blank is rubber, and also blank is metal. Right? And I'm positing, this isn't in the scriptures or anything, I'm positing that the answer is no, that there's nothing that you could ever find that you could ever point to and say, yes, this is rubber and this is metal. So there's no common locus between them. Right? In which case we can say the two, rubber and metal are mutually exclusive. That's what mutually exclusive means. Mutually exclusive means that, that they exist, but there's nothing that is both of them.
Would you say that they're both natural resources?
So you can say that they're both lots of things, right? But again, subject predicate. Rubber is a natural resource, but not natural resource is rubber. You see, metal is a natural resource, but not natural resource is metal. So if you're thinking of them as subjects, there's lots of predicates that they have in common. Matter, natural resource, existent, physical, used in construction, lots of predicates that they have in common. But that's not what we're doing when we're comparing phenomena. When we're comparing phenomena, we're not looking at them as subjects, we're looking at them as predicates. So the question always is, when you're asking, is there a common locus? The question always is there something that is this and is that? Not the other way around. So you can put in sentences in your head. Blank is rubber, blank is metal. Can I fill in the blank using the same word for both blanks, such that both sentences are true? Let me give you another example. My husband's name is Nick, right? So Gus and Nick. Gus and Nick, how do the two, Gus and Nick, compare? So the first thing we ask is there a common locus of Gus and Nick? So that means, is there something that is Gus and that same thing is also Nick? So there is something that is Gus, this guy is Gus. So there is something that is Gus, but is this guy Nick? No, I'm not Nick, right? So this is not a common locus of Gus and Nick. This is not both Gus and Nick. This is Gus, but it's not Nick. This is not a common locus of Gus and Nick because this is not Gus and this is not Nick, right? Nick, I wish I had him here for like a visual aid. Nick is not a common locus of Gus and Nick because Nick is Nick, but Nick is not Gus, right? So can I think of anything that I could say, oh, here it is. This is Gus and Nick. This one thing is Gus and Nick. And the answer is no. So there's no common locus of Gus and Nick, which means that the two, Gus and Nick, are mutually exclusive. You'd be pleased to hear me say that, right? The trick, the only reason that sounds funny is because it might sound like we're saying something else, but we're not. We're not saying we're incompatible, right? We're not saying we don't share qualities in common. We share many qualities in common, many, right? What we're saying is that there isn't anything in the world that you could point at that is both Gus and Nick. They're two separate things as predicates.
Can I just clarify that in a sentence or
Yes.
like in a, so A being the subject in both of these things. So A is B is a predicate, and A is also C as a predicate. If that was true, then B and C would be mutually inclusive. But I should have said it the other way around, shouldn't I? Okay, so if A is B, but A isn't C, then they're mutually exclusive. B and C are mutually exclusive.
I love what you're doing. And this, by the way, what you're doing, this is the way to learn this, right? To sit at home and write this out.
Hey, I love it.
Yeah.
I am typing.
I'm taking notes.
So let me put it in the terms you said, right? If I say A is B and A is C, that means that A is a common locus of B and C, which means that B and C have a common locus, which means that B and C are not mutually exclusive. That's all you can say so far, right? Now, if A is B and A is not C, all that means is that A is not a common locus of B and C. We don't know yet whether there is a common locus of B and C. We have to look at other things. We have to look at everything else to see if there is any common, like maybe F is a common locus of B and C for all we know, but A is not a common locus of B and C. Again, the hypothesis there is A is B, but A is not C. Likewise, if I say A is not B, but A is C, again, A is not a common locus of B and C. And of course, if I say A is not B and A is not C, then of course also A is not a common locus of B and C. Right? So does that answer your question? Is it a little clear?
Yeah, just the one bit though, in which of those instances is the mutually exclusive come in, or does it not?
None of those prove that something is mutually exclusive. The only way to prove that something is mutually exclusive is to say it's not just that A is not a common locus of B and C, but nothing is a common locus of B and C. A is not, and B is not, and C is not, and D is not, and E is not, and F is not. Like there is no common locus of B and C, then it's mutually exclusive. All that A is doing there is serving as an example. You know, if there is a common locus of B and C, then we need to posit the example. If I claim there is a common locus of B and C, then you say, oh, give me an example then. I can say A, right? But if I say, there is no common locus of B and C, then, or I don't know whether there's a common locus of B and C, or then there's not an example in question yet at that point, right? If I say this is not, so okay, so ready, let me give you an example of that. What do you guys think if I say whale and animal? Is there a common locus of whale and animal? Yeah, is there something that you can say this, whatever, blank is a whale and blank is an animal? Can somebody think of an example?
Mammal?
Not mammal, because I wouldn't say that mammal is a whale.
Oh,
A whale is a whale and a whale is an animal.
Whale is a whale, good, very good. But let's see if we can come up with a subtype, just to make it a little bit clearer.
An orca.
An orca. An orca is a whale, and an orca is an animal. So there is a common locus of whale and animal, right? For example, an orca. Or, for example, a blue whale. Or, for example, a sperm whale. Or, for example, shamu. Right? Or Willy from Free Willy. Now, this pen is not a common locus of whale and animal. This pen is not a whale, and this pen is not an animal, so this pen is not a common locus of whale and animal. But that doesn't prove that there isn't a common locus of whale and animal. There is, it's just not this. So we have to cast the net really wide. We have to cast our mind really wide and trying to think, is there a common locus of these things? Is there something that is these things? Just figuring that this particular thing isn't, that's not enough to prove it. Let's do another example. What do you guys think? Well, even before I ask you what you think, let's kind of think this through together. If I said, well, let me see. I'm just trying to think like what visual implements I can use. Okay, if I said, just think for 1 second. Round, and containing many civilizations. Round and containing many civilizations. So the first thing to do is to ask, is there a common locus of those things? Is there something that is round and that contains many civilizations, right? Now, this glass is round, but this glass does not contain many civilizations, as best as I can tell, right? Therefore, okay, this glass is not a common locus of round and containing many civilizations, right? But that's neither here nor there. Can we think of anything that is round and contains many? What's an example?
The earth.
The earth, right? The earth is round. The earth contains many civilizations. So the earth is a common locus of round and containing many civilizations. Therefore, we know that therefore we know that round and containing many civilizations are not mutually exclusive. We don't know exactly how they compare yet, but mutually exclusive, they're not. On the other hand, if I said, writing implement and larger than Texas, right? Writing implement and larger than Texas. Let's look for a common locus. Okay, so this pen is not a common locus of writing implement and larger than Texas because it is a writing implement, but it's not larger than Texas. So, okay, this isn't it, but that doesn't prove anything in itself, right? So the question is, can we think of anything that is a writing implement and is larger than Texas? And for those of you deep in thought, I so appreciate that, because I'm just going to go out on a limb and say no, just at least for the sake of argument, if nothing else, right? No, there's nothing that is a writing implement and that is also larger than Texas, right? So there is no common locus, so they are mutually exclusive.
I was thinking about a Macy's parade giant pen that actually worked, and would it be bigger than Texas? Probably not.
You hope not.
No, I thought about it too, and then I go, no, this is for the example of the argument, and so I'm just going to go with no. Yeah.
Yes. But what you guys are doing is spot on. That's what we need to do, right? That's what we're doing. Okay. So far what we've said is, if there is not a common locus, if there is not something that is both, then they're mutually exclusive. Now, what if there is a common locus? If there is a common locus, then we need to ask two questions. We need to ask, are there any examples of something that is the first thing, but is not the second thing? And the second question is, are there any examples of something that is the second thing, but is not the first thing? Reword it very slightly, just if it's helpful. Are there any examples of the first thing that are not also examples of the second thing? And are there any examples of the second thing that are not also examples of the first thing? Okay, so let me give you a for instance. let's go with our old friend, dog and animal. Dog and animal. So the first question is to ask, is there a common locus? Is there something that is both dog and animal? And I'll just tell you the answer is yes. Snoopy is an example. Snoopy is a dog, Snoopy is an animal. Another example would be Saint Bernard. Saint Bernard is a dog, Saint Bernard is an animal, right? So there is a common locus. So they're not mutually exclusive. So we keep going. So now we ask, is there any example of a dog that is not also an example of an animal? Can you think of something that is a dog but isn't an animal?
A figurine. Figurine.
A figurine. Okay, see, this is good. This is good. If you have a figurine of a dog and you say that's a dog, if you're going to say it's a dog, you're also going to say it's an animal. Right? Think about it. If you say, well, it's not an animal because it's not a real animal, well, then it's not a dog because it's not a real dog. But if you say, oh, it looks like a dog, therefore it counts, well, then it looks like an animal and therefore it counts.
That's right. I did what Sheila was doing earlier. I get it, but it gets tricky. You can't just blab right off the top of my head. Sorry.
Oh, this is perfect. This is exactly what we're here for. This is perfect.
So if we were talking about what was real, then that wouldn't count because it's a figurine. If we're talking in the nature of reality.
Exactly.
So you'd have to say in proper English, you'd have to say it's a figurine of a dog. You can't go, it's a dog. So you have to add the specific to the qualifier. Is that right?
That way. Yes, 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 exactly. So from a Tibetan Buddhist point of view, we would, if you pointed at a figurine of a dog and you said that is a dog, strictly speaking, we would say no, a figurine of a dog is not a dog. We could give lots of reasons. I mean, it's not alive. It's not a mammal. It doesn't drink milk. It doesn't wag its tail, and it never has. But if somebody insisted that it was, then by the same logic, they would also have to insist that it is an animal, right? So if we ask, are there any examples of dog that are not also examples of animal? The answer is no, there aren't. Whatever is a dog necessarily is an animal. But we have to ask the question the other way too. Is there any example of an animal that isn't also an example of a dog? Can somebody give an example? Out loud.
Any other animal, like a cat or...
There you go. Cat, right? Or vulture or earthworm, right? But in Tibetan debate, we're always going to give the example when asked, like a specific one. Even if there's a billion examples that we could use, we're just going to pick one, right? Just to make it concrete and to make sure that we're talking about the real world as opposed to just in theory, right? So here, what do we find so far? Between the two, dog and animal, there is a common locus. There's something that is both, right? For example, Snoopy. There is something that is an animal, but is not a dog. For example, cat. But there is nothing that is a dog that is not an animal. Whatever is a dog necessarily is an animal. Okay? Let me give you another one. What if I said the two, human, and living in Europe. Human and living in Europe. Okay? How do they compare? So first of all, is there a common locus? Can we think of a common locus? I see people nodding their heads. So give me an example of something that is human and that lives in Europe. You can be very specific.
King Charles.
King Charles, right? King Charles. Well, we have folks from the UK.
Sure, he's human.
So it's
it's not Europe.
Minute. I don't know if folks from the UK would debate whether that's Europe. From out here, from the United States, we would say that's Europe, yes. So King Charles is a common locus of being human and of living in Europe, right? We could also say even more broadly, we could also say someone living in France. Someone living in France, a human being living in France. A human being living in France is human. A human being living in France is living in Europe, right? So we can be broad, we can be specific, it all works, right? Okay, so there is a common locus, so we know that they're not mutually exclusive. So far, so good. So now we ask, is there an example of something that is a human being that is not an example of something living in Europe? Can you give an example?
This debate club people.
Some of us, at least, some of us, right? So I could say me. I could say me, or I could say Jana, like I could say, my husband, Nick, right? Human, but not living in Europe. Okay. So there is something that's human, but not living in Europe. Now, what about, is there something that is living in Europe, but is not human? Can somebody give an example?
Cats.
Rats, right?
Cats.
We'd
I
have
was
to-
thinking tiger, but I don't know if tigers live in Europe.
I don't know. So let's pick something we know. So somebody said rats, I think. So, but cats, sorry, cats. But we'd have to be more specific. We'd have to say cats that live in Europe, or cats that live in Germany, or anything like that. Because cats, just cats, we can't say cats live in Europe in the sense of cats is an example of an illustration of living in Europe, right? So, but cats that live in Europe, or cats that live in Paris, or anything like that, yes. So cats that live in Paris, let's say, is an example of something that lives in Europe and is an example of something that is not human, right? So in this case, there's examples in both directions, right? So what we'll find is, having ruled out that they're mutually exclusive, what we'll find is that sometimes, let me give you one more. One second, let me just think of the example I want to give. Let's say the two bald and without hair. No, you know what? Sorry, that can get complicated. Let's say bachelor and unmarried man. Bachelor and unmarried man. Okay. First of all, can you think of a common locus? Can you posit it, please? Anybody?
Dennis.
Huh?
Our friend Dennis is a bachelor and a man.
So let's go with that. So Dennis is a bachelor. Dennis is an unmarried man, right? So it's not mutually exclusive. We could also say His Holiness the Dalai Lama. We could say Pope Francis, right? We could say a 40-year-old man who isn't married. We could say anything. Now, can you think of any examples of a bachelor, something that is a bachelor, but is not an unmarried man? And we're not trying to be cute and come up with another definition of bachelor. We're using the term in the same way, right, as before. No. Whatever is a bachelor necessarily is an unmarried man. Now, what about the other way? Can you think of any examples of something that is an unmarried man, but is not a bachelor? If so, please pause it.
Widower.
A widower, right? A widower. Now, I guess this might come down to just a matter of my understanding of the word, but by my understanding of the word, an unmarried widower is still a bachelor, because my understanding is that the word bachelor just means a man who is not married, right? So I might be getting the word wrong, but just for the sake of the example, if my understanding of the word is correct, then I would say that no, that whoever is an unmarried man is necessarily a bachelor, right? Because that's, again, I'm cheating because I'm just telling you that that's how I understand the definition of the word. But just for the sake of the example, if you follow, right? So if we go by that, then that's an example of something where there is a common locus, but there isn't any example of one that isn't the other, and there isn't any example of the other that isn't the one. Here's another one in English, using these words in English as they're commonly used: cat and feline. Cat and feline. Okay, there's a common locus of the two, because you could say tabby cat. A tabby cat is a cat. A tabby cat is a feline. You could say tiger. A tiger is a cat. A tiger is a feline, right? There's nothing that you could say that is a cat that is not a feline. There's nothing. Whatever is a cat is necessarily a feline. And there's also nothing that you can say that is a feline that isn't a cat in English. Whatever is a feline necessarily is a cat. Right? Because in English, the way the words are used in English, cat doesn't refer just to a house cat. A cat, like a tiger is a cat, lion is a cat, black panther is a cat. Right? Does that make sense? Do you follow? So here are the rules. If there is no common locus, then they're mutually exclusive. If there is a common locus, then we go on. If there is a common locus, then when you ask, is there an example of A that isn't B? Is there an example of B that isn't A? If you say yes to both of them, then the two phenomena, between the two phenomena, there are four possibilities. The four possibilities are: there's something that is both, there's something that is one but not the other, there's something that is other but not the one, and perhaps there's something that is neither. Okay? So it's going to be some type of four possibilities. If you say yes to one of the questions but not to the other of the questions, then the answer is going to be some type of three possibilities. Okay? So for example, again, dog and animal, right? There's a common locus, fine. Now, is there something that is an animal but is not a dog? Yes, a whale. So I said yes. Is there something that is a dog but is not an animal? No. Whatever is a dog is necessarily an animal. So I said yes to one of the questions but not to the other. So between dog and animal, there are three possibilities, right? There is something that is both a dog and an animal, Snoopy. There is something that is an animal but not a dog, a whale. And there's something that is neither an animal nor a dog, water. Three possibilities. There isn't a fourth possibility, because the fourth possibility would be something that is a dog but not an animal. And that possibility we've ruled out. So there's three possibilities only. And finally, if we say no to both questions, if there isn't something that is A but is not B, and there isn't something that is B but is not A, then they're mutually inclusive, which means whatever is A is necessarily B, whatever is B is necessarily A. So cat and feline are mutually inclusive. Whatever is a cat is necessarily a feline, whatever is a feline is necessarily a cat. You'll never find one that isn't the other, you'll never find other that isn't the one, so to speak. Now, in the West, things tend to get presented with Venn diagrams, and Euler diagrams and such, right? With circles overlapping. If you find that helpful, by all means. I personally tend to find that more confusing. I like the way the Tibetans do it. The Tibetans they do it in terms of corners. It's like you imagine a room, I suppose, with 4 corners, right? And so first you establish whether there's a common locus. If so, it's mutually exclusive, you're done, right? Then you check to see how many of the corners have things in them. So one corner is going to say both A and B. One corner is going to say A but not B. One corner is going to say B but not A. And the fourth corner is going to say neither A nor B, right? So if we take dog and animal, one corner is going to be both dog and animal. Yes, there's something there. There's Snoopy, there's St. Bernards, and there's pit bulls, right? Another corner is going to be dog, but not animal. There's nothing in that corner. There's nothing in that corner. Another corner is going to be animal, but not dog. Oh, there's something there. There's a blue whale, there's a sea otter, there's a mosquito. And then the fourth corner is going to be neither dog nor animal. Oh, there's something there. There's rocks and salt and water, right? So then I can see of these 4 corners, how many of them have something in them? There's 3. This corner had something in it, that corner had something in it, this corner had something in it, that corner over there had nothing in it. So there's 3 corners, 3 possibilities. Because when what we're translated as 3 possibilities, literally is translated as 3 corners. On the other hand, if I say animal and living in Europe, let me check the 4 corners. So this corner is both animal and living in Europe. Is there something in this corner? Human and living in Europe. Human and living in Europe. So this corner is both human and living in Europe. Is there something in this corner? Oh yes, people living in Paris, humans living in Paris are in that corner. There's something in this corner. That corner is human, but not living in Europe. Is there something there? Oh yes, there's something there. I'm there. Joe Biden is there, right? Now in that corner, it's living in Europe, but not human. Is there something there? Oh yes, all of the rats in the Paris metro are there, you know? All of the cats living in Berlin are there, right? So there's something in that corner. And this corner is neither human nor living in Europe. Is there something there? Yes, Snoopy is there. He's not human and he's living in the US. He's not living in Europe. This bottle of water is there. This is not human and this is not living in Europe. Not living anywhere, right? So how many corners had something in it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 4. 4 corners had something in it. So between them, there are 4 possibilities. What do you guys think? Do you like that?
I love it. This is great.
Good. I'm glad. I'm very glad. Very glad. It's not to hype it up too much, but in my experience, it's life-changing. It's life-changing. When you really start to think about things this way, everything in life becomes clearer. Again, maybe I'm hyping it up a lot, but like that's
I'm thinking that I was so excited to see this class because I'm very intelligent, but I'm not all that verbal face to face. And I thought, well, this will definitely help me to be able to explain the Dharma to other people without getting frustrated.
Very
you know.
nice.
So thank you.
Oh, I'm very glad. I'm very glad. What a wonderful reason for doing it. Fantastic.
You mentioned 4 corners and 3 corners. What about like 2 corners or 1 corner?
Good question.
Or work?
I'm tempted to answer that question thoroughly, but I'm going to be pragmatic and say that if I were to speak to it that way, I think for the moment it would feel more confusing. So for now, what I would say is, if it's mutually exclusive or if it's mutually inclusive, that will be clear enough and you don't have to think in terms of corners. That's the pragmatic answer. I could give you like a long answer about like the times when that does happen, but another way to think of it is, if they don't overlap at all, they're mutually exclusive. If they overlap entirely, they're mutually inclusive. If they overlap but not entirely, then you have to check the corners. It's either going to be 3 possibilities or 4 possibilities. Okay? Now, this is where it gets confusing, what I'm about to say next. Okay? Because so far it's been so easy. In the Tibetan debate tradition, there is this rule that if there's 3 possibilities or 4 possibilities, if it's mutually inclusive or mutually exclusive, you're good. That's all you need to worry about. That's all you need to say. But if it turns out that 2 things compares 3 possibilities, or that 2 things compares 4 possibilities, then you have to think one more thing, right? You have to check whether there's anything in this corner, whether there's anything in the neither pile. Is there anything that is neither? Okay. Sometimes 99.9% of the time there will be. 0.1% of the time there won't be. And typically, I don't think I've ever come across in my life a time when there wasn't, outside of debates. Like, if you're not discussing philosophy, typically there will be something that is neither. But if you're discussing like deep philosophical, very precise philosophical things, then sometimes there won't be. I'll give you some examples, okay? But before I give you any examples, this is what I want to say. This is one place where Tibetan debate cheats, but it only cheats in the words it uses. It doesn't cheat in the meaning. It doesn't cheat in the meaning and the logic itself. It just cheats in the words it uses. And here's where it cheats. When we're trying to figure out whether something is 4 possibilities or 3 possibilities, we don't really count the corner where there's neither. We assume for the moment that there's something there. So if 2 of the other corners are filled up, then we're going to say it's 3 possibilities. If 3 of the other corners are filled up, we're going to say it's 4 possibilities. Okay? Because we want the term 4 possibilities. We want that to mean that things overlap. There's a common locus, but there is something that's A but not B, and something that's B but not A. Whenever that's the case, we're just going to call that 4 possibilities. And we want 3 possibilities to mean that one is included inside the other. Like dog is a type of animal, right? But animal is not a type of dog, so that's 3 possibilities. It sounds confusing at first, but believe me, it makes it so much easier. So much easier. This is why we don't have to worry about 2 possibilities or 1 possibility. It makes it super easy. I'll give you some examples, but also take solace in the fact that this comes up very, very rarely at all, right? But let me actually go right into the examples. Here are some examples. Suppose I ask, how do these 2 things compare? Nameable, and paperclip. Nameable and paperclip. Okay? So first we ask, is there something that is both? Is there something that is nameable and is a paperclip? They could say, yes, a metal paperclip. Metal paperclip is nameable. I just named it metal paperclip. And a metal paperclip is a paperclip, right? So there's something that is both. Okay. Now, is there something that is nameable, but is not a metal paperclip? Sure, right? You can think of trillions of things, right? Gus is nameable. Gus is not a metal paperclip, I'm happy to say, right? Okay, so there's something that is nameable but not metal paperclip, but not paperclip. Now, what about the third? Paperclip, but not nameable. Is there anything that is a paperclip but is not nameable? And I'm just going to ease this along and say no. Anything whatsoever is nameable. Anything whatsoever is nameable. If in doubt, just call it Harry. It's nameable. You can give it a name. You might be giving it a great name, but you can always give it a name if you want. You know, that feeling I had 7 years ago when for a moment I thought I lost my wallet, but then I realized I hadn't. That specific particular instance of that feeling, is that nameable? Sure, call it Bob. You know? So anything is nameable. So is there anything in that corner, anything that is a paperclip but is not nameable? No. Okay? So far, here's what I have. I haven't looked at the fourth corner yet, but so far, here's what I have. There is something that is both nameable and paperclip, like metal paperclip. There is something that is nameable but not paperclip, right, Gus? There can't be anything that is paperclip but is not nameable. Whatever is paperclip is necessarily nameable, okay? So I can already say it's going to be 3 possibilities because I said yes to one question and no to the other. It's 3 possibilities, okay? So between paperclip and nameable, or between nameable and paperclip, either way, there are 3 possibilities, right? But now I'm going to finally check the last corner. Is there something that is neither? Is there something that is neither nameable nor paperclip? And the answer is no, because like we said, there is nothing that isn't nameable. You couldn't mention anything, whether it's a paperclip or not, that isn't nameable. So there's nothing in this corner, not paperclip and not nameable. There isn't anything.
I guess because the minute I can think of it, I can name it. Huh?
Exactly. Exactly. Whether it exists or not, even things that don't exist, you can name. So nameable includes everything whatsoever.
I'm confused between the 3 possibilities and the 3 possibilities as neither, or the 4 possibilities and the 4 possibilities as neither.
Exactly.
So I have 3 possibilities, something that is both A and B, something that's A but not B, and something that's neither A or B. Is that wrong?
You are correct. This is the cheating part that I mentioned. The cheating part that I mentioned is that in that case that you just gave, even if it turns out that there isn't anything that is neither, we'll still call it 3 possibilities, even though it's actually 2 possibilities only. That's the cheating. That's the cheating, right?
But we need to cover all 3, both A and B, A but not B, and then, yeah, okay. And then, and then the 4 is something that's both A and B, something that's A but not B, something that's B but not A, and then something that's neither A or B.
Exactly. That's exactly right. And the cheating part there is that even if there isn't anything that is neither, we still call it 4 possibilities, even though technically there's only 3. That's the cheat.
So I guess it doesn't really matter then whether there's a neither, it's the fact you've checked for a neither, or is that wrong?
That's right. That's right. That's right. That's exactly right. So basically, it really, I think it just comes down to historical reasons that these are the terms that are used, but the terms that are used are like this. If it goes both, if there, all of this is now saying there's a common locus, okay? So there's a common locus and there's something that is A but not B, and there's something that is B but not A, then it's 4 possibilities. That's what we call it. If there's a common locus, there's something that is A but not B, but there is nothing that is B but not A, there's 3 possibilities. That's what we call it. Similarly, there's a common locus, there's something that's B but not A, but there's nothing that's A but not B, it's 3 possibilities. That's what we call it. It doesn't matter which one we're calling A and which one we're calling B, so it's their equivalent, right? So in none of that did we really check, is there neither, right? But that's an extra step that we are going to specify afterwards. So let me give you a couple more examples. Let's go with an example borrowed from what Jana said before. Rubber and matter. Rubber and matter. Okay. So first of all, is there a common locus? And the answer is yes. this eraser on the tip of my pencil is rubber and it's matter, right? So there's a common locus, fine. Now, is there something that is rubber but is not matter? No, whatever is rubber is necessarily matter. Is there something that is matter but is not rubber? Yeah, like metal, for example, right? Okay, so there's a common locus, and there is something that is one but not the other, but in the other direction, that's not true. So it's three possibilities, right? There's something that is both rubber and matter. There's something that is matter but not rubber. There is nothing that is rubber but not matter. So we're going to say there's three possibilities. We answered yes to one side and no to the other side. So it's three possibilities, right? Now we check, is there something that is neither? Is there anything that is neither rubber nor matter? What would be an example for those nodding their heads?
Mind.
Mind. In Buddhism, we would say for sure, mind is not rubber. And mind.
Maybe space.
Space is not rubber and space is not matter. The number three is not rubber. The number three is not matter. Santa Claus is not rubber. Santa Claus is not matter. A four-sided triangle is not rubber. A four-sided triangle is not matter. Right? So there is definitely something that is neither. So if we had established that it's three possibilities, now we can say it's three possibilities without anything that is neither. And that's the answer in debate. No. The other one. Three possibilities with something that is neither. Sorry. And that's it, right? That's it, right? Now, just in practical terms, when the answer is three possibilities with something that is including something that is neither, you just say three possibilities. That's the default, three possibilities. Right? Now, what if I said something you can refer to, and emotion. Something you can refer to and emotion. So let's check. Is there a common locus? What's an example?
Fear.
Sorry?
Fear.
Fear. Fear is something you can refer to. Fear is an emotion. So there's a common locus. Now we're going to check on one side. Is there something that you can refer to that is not an emotion? What's an example?
Snoopy.
Snoopy is all the feels, but Snoopy is not an emotion. Snoopy is something you can refer to. Snoopy is not an emotion, right? Now, is there something that is an emotion, but is not something you can refer to? No, right? There's nothing that is an emotion that you can't refer to. Therefore, it's three possibilities, because there's a common locus. On one side, there is something that is one but not the other, but on the other side, there isn't. So it's three possibilities. Okay, so that much is clear. We know it's three possibilities. Now we just have to check whether there is something that is neither. All right, so is there something that is not an emotion, but is also not something you can refer to? No, because anything you can refer to, right? There's no such thing as something you can't refer to. So there's nothing in that, and there's nothing that is neither, right? So here the answer then would be, how do they compare? There are three possibilities without anything that is neither. Right? Couple more. Water bottle and container. Okay, how do the two compare? Water bottle and container. So let's see, first of all, is there a common locus? Right? I'll posit a common locus for you. This water bottle. This water bottle is a water bottle. This water bottle is a container. It contains water. right? Now, can you think of something that is a water bottle, but is not a container? Whatever is a water bottle necessarily is a container. So there's nothing that is a water bottle but isn't a container. Now, what about something that is a container but is not a water bottle? Can you posit something? Do it. Prove it.
Box.
A box. A box is a container. A box is not a water bottle, right? So you see there's a common locus. On one side, there isn't something you can posit. On the other side, there is. So there's three possibilities, right? There's three possibilities. So now let's check for neither. Is there something that is neither a water bottle nor a container? What's an example?
Snoopy.
Snoopy. Snoopy. I would certainly agree with that. That's for sure. But if we want it to be even less controversial, just because Snoopy contains the food he ate, right? I don't know. So even less controversially, I could say a bar of soap, or the number 3, It's an infinite number of things we can posit. So there is something that is neither, right? Therefore, the answer, if somebody asks, how do the two compare? Water bottle and container, the answer is between them, there are three possibilities, right? I'm not going to say anything about something that is neither because it's the default one. Last one, okay? This is the trickiest one yet. On one side, we have not a four-sided triangle. Not a four-sided triangle. On the other side, we have river. How do the two compare? Not a four-sided triangle and river. So let's think, is there a common locus? Is there something that is not a four-sided triangle, but is a river? Can somebody?
A river.
Yeah, any river.
A river is not a force. Yeah.
Exactly. So river itself works, but let's just be, I'll say the Nile, the Nile. The Nile is not a four-sided triangle. Good. The Nile is a river, right? So it is not a four-sided triangle, and it is a river. So that's a common locus of those two, not a four-sided triangle and river. Okay? Now, let me just go in this order, just for easiness. Can somebody give me an example that's something that is not a four-sided triangle? It is not a four-sided triangle, but is not a river.
I put my microphone on too quick and I didn't catch what the last part you said.
Sure. So now we're looking for something that is not a four-sided triangle, but is not river.
Almost anything.
Just about anything, right? Can somebody posit an example?
Book.
Huh?
A book.
A book. Perfect. A book is not a four-sided triangle, but isn't a river. Okay, so there's something there, right? Now in the other direction, can you think of something that is a river, but is not a four-sided triangle? Which means to say it's not a four-sided triangle means that it is a four-sided triangle. So can you think of something that is a river and is also a four-sided triangle? No, there's nothing there. There's nothing there. Whatever is a river is necessarily not a four-sided triangle. Okay? So there's three possibilities we see, because there's a common locus, there's something that is one but not the other, but there isn't something that is the other but not the one, so there's three possibilities. Right? Now we check whether there's something that is neither. Can you think of something that is neither not a four-sided triangle, nor a river? So this would have to be something that is not, but is a four-sided triangle.
Oh.
There isn't anything, because there's no such thing as a four-sided triangle. Anything whatsoever that you could possibly name is not a four-sided triangle. So there isn't something that is not a four-sided triangle. That is not a four-sided triangle, which means that there's nothing that is neither not a four-sided triangle nor river. So then the answer is there are three possibilities without anything that is neither. Somebody says, if you're walking down the street and somebody approaches you and says, how do the two compare? Not a four-sided triangle and river. You say, excuse me, I don't know you, I'll call the police. Or say, between them, there are three possibilities without anything that is neither.
I can see how this stretches the brain into some new places.
Good, good.
And that it must be some really interesting debates sometimes with creativity.
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. That sensation you're experiencing is the sensation of new neural connections being made and intelligence growing. This is like working out. This is like exercising for intelligence for the brain. Now let me give you some examples. Now, the next set is the rarest of all. It's like the unicorns of these things. 4 possibilities without anything that is neither. Okay. Give me 1 second. Because I think I just thought of one more example that I think I like better. Hold on, give me just 1 second. No, I'm sorry. Okay, that was too good to be true. All right. I thought of like a real life example, but it's not. So we'll have to use some of these more philosophical examples. Okay, so here are the 2 things we're going to compare. On the one side, we're going to compare shape. And then the other side, we're going to compare non-triangle. Now, non-triangle just means that it's not a triangle. Okay, so this bottle of water is non-triangle. I am non-triangle. The number 3 is non-triangle. It's not a triangle, it's just a number. So anything whatsoever that isn't a triangle is non-triangle, okay? So how do the 2 compare? Shape and non-triangle. So first of all, can we think of a common locus? Can you think of something that is a shape and is a non-triangle? Pause it. Circle, beautiful. A circle is a shape, a circle is a non-triangle, there's a common locus, right? Now, can you think of anything that is a shape? Yes, that is a shape, but is not non-triangle.
No.
Oh, yes, you can.
Uh-oh.
A shape, but not non-triangle.
Oh, okay. Like, yeah, a hexagon.
No, you're getting warmer. You're getting warmer.
A triangle?
Huh?
A triangle.
A triangle. Yes, a
Oh.
triangle is a shape, and a triangle is not a non-triangle.
Get it? Cool.
You see? It's so tricky, right? So tricky. But a triangle is a shape, and a triangle is not a non-triangle, right? Another example, an isosceles triangle. An isosceles triangle is a shape. An isosceles triangle is not a non-triangle, right? Okay, now, can you think of anything that is a non-triangle, but is not a shape? Oh, yes, you can. You guys are giving up too easy.
Anything, a rock.
A rock. A rock is a non-triangle, and a rock is not a shape. A rock is an object, right? Space. Space is a non-triangle. Space is not a shape, right? So here we were able to think of a common locus, and we were able to think of things on both sides, something that is A but not B, something that is B but not A. Therefore, we know there's 4 possibilities. All right? There's 4 possibilities. Now we have to check whether there's something that is neither. Now, this is the tricky thing. Can you think of something that is neither a shape nor a non-triangle? So can you think of something that is not a shape and that is not a non-triangle?
No.
This is the one you can't do. Because whatever is not a non-triangle is necessarily a shape. Why? Because whatever is not a non-triangle is necessarily a triangle. If it's not a non-triangle, well, then it's a triangle. And if it's a triangle, then it's a shape. So there is nothing that is neither. So here the answer that we would give is, how do the two compare? Shape and non-triangle. Between them, there are 4 possibilities without anything that is neither. Next, how do the two compare? Human and non-dentist. Non-dentist. Okay? So, can we think of a common locus? Is there a common locus of human and non-dentist? Can you pause it, please?
Grocer.
A grocer. A grocer is a human. A grocer is a non-dentist. All right? Now, can you think of an example? Can you think of an example of something that is a human, but is not a non-dentist? It is human and it is not non-dentist. So please pause it if you have one.
Dentist, so it has to be human.
A dentist, right? Or like a male dentist, a female dentist, a non-binary dentist, an American dentist, a British dentist, anything like that. So
a holistic dentist.
A holistic dentist. All of those are human, but they're not non-dentist, right? Now, can you think of an example of something that is a non-dentist, but is not human? Please pause it.
Dog.
A dog. A dog is non-dentist, and a dog is not human. Beautiful. So we found that there's a common locus. We found that there's something on this side. We found that there's something on that side. So between them, there are 4 possibilities. It's going to be a part of our answer. Now we have to check whether there's something that is neither, right? So now, can you think of anything that is not human?
How is that 4 possibilities?
I'll come back.
4 possibilities. Okay.
Can you think of something that is not human, but is also not non-dentist?
No.
No, because if you think that through, what you'd be looking for is something that is not human, but is a dentist, right? There's no such thing, right? Whatever is a dentist is necessarily human. So whatever is not non-human is necessarily a dentist. Whatever is a dentist is necessarily not non-human. Sorry, that's what I meant to say. So there's nothing that is neither. So the answer is, between the two, human and non-dentist, there are 4 possibilities without anything that is neither.
Apparently, this may change with AI or robotics, however.
Very true. Very true. Very true. So that we have to say we're assuming so far as of right now. Yes, good point.
So could you go back to the 4 possibilities? I mean, it seems like there are 3 possibilities plus.
Yes, you are correct. So let me, this is again the thing that I'm calling cheating, okay? And again, I keep calling it cheating, but just tongue in cheek, it's just a matter of terminology. Whenever you say that between 2 things, there are 4 possibilities without anything that is neither, in reality, that only leaves you with 3 possibilities. You've ruled out the neither, right? The possibilities are both, A but not B, B but not A, and neither A nor B. So if you say 4 possibilities without anything that is neither, you're only left with both, A but not B, B but not A, right? But we still call it 4 possibilities just to keep it easy, because as long as we establish these 3 things, then we're going to call it 4 possibilities, and then we're going to worry about whether the 4th one is really there or not.
So what if it's, now go back to what's three possibilities?
The three possibilities are both, A but not B, and neither. That's when B but not A isn't possible.
So that's like a subset.
Exactly. Three possibilities means that one is a subset of the other. That's exactly right. There are things that are both. There are things that are the larger one, but not the smaller one, but there's nothing that's the smaller one, but not the larger one. That's three possibilities. Now, there could be something that is neither or not. Right? Now, technically, if you think about it, if you have three possibilities without anything that is neither, truly, you only have two possibilities. Actually, you have it's either both or it's A but not B. You've already ruled out B but not A, and now you're saying there's nothing that is neither. So really, there's only two possibilities, but we still call it three possibilities without something that is neither. Now, just to
Snoopy, can we see Snoopy?
oh yes, I'll prove that he's a dog, right? I can tell he's downstairs right now, but if he comes upstairs, I'll definitely let him in and show you. If you so Daniel Perdue, so let me say this actually. What I'm teaching, the way I'm phrasing this, is one of the two traditions of how to name these things. There is another tradition where what we're calling four possibilities without anything that is neither is called three possibilities without anything that is neither, which is more literal. It's more literally accurate. However, in that tradition, what we're calling three possibilities without anything that is neither, they also call three possibilities without anything that is neither, which just makes it nice and confusing. That's why we're not going with that tradition, right? So Daniel Perdue.
What's the name of that tradition?
Oh,
What's the name of it?
I don't know the names. I don't think.
I'll figure it out. I'll figure it out. Thanks.
Think they have names. Like I'm phrasing it as traditions, but I don't think it's not like, the Gelug or the Jitsun textbook tradition. It's not like that. It's just like some teachers teach it one way, some teachers teach it another. That's all I mean. So Daniel Perdue once asked, why don't we ever say, instead of saying four possibilities, we can say three possibilities without anything that is neither. Why can't we ever say, why can't we say two possibilities without anything that is neither? And the answer that he got from the Geshe was, because that's not one of the answers in debate. Meaning, it's just the tradition, right? But I promise you that when you get it, it works. It works really well, and it's actually easier this way than if it were more literal, because you go through this process, right? Let me say the process again. The process is, first check if there's a common locus. If there's not, they're mutually exclusive, you're done. If there is a common locus, then ask two questions. Is there any example of A and not B? Is there any example of B and not A? If you say yes to both, then it's some type of four possibilities. If you say yes to one and no to another, it's some type of three possibilities. And if you say no to both, then it's mutually inclusive. Finally, if it's some type of three possibilities, or if it's some type of four possibilities, then check whether there's something that is neither. That's all.
I've spent ages writing A's and B's and whatever, and I've actually come to the conclusion that if you're a visual person, I don't know if anyone is, I am. So listening for me without pictures is very difficult, which is why I've not said anything for the last however long, because I'm thinking about what's being said. But if you actually have the visual of the circles, it actually helps, because then is actually three visually, even though we're saying it's two with the three possibilities and three with the four possibilities, which is obviously your points there, ladies. when you visualize it, you can go, okay, it's A and B, and it's A but not B. It makes it 3, if that makes sense, for the 3 possibilities visually. I think I find that kind of quite helpful.
Let me draw it.
And the same for the 4. It makes it 4 when you look at it visually, when you're visualizing. Does
Yeah.
that make sense, Gus? Have I explained that right?
Yes, I believe you did. I believe you did. But I'm just gonna.
But yeah, in writing it, it's a nightmare. It becomes 2 and 3 rather than 3 and 4.
Oh God, I would never write it. Yeah, that's it. There it is.
Possibilities is like that. 1 possibility is the middle. 2 possibilities is here. 3 possibilities is here. 4 possibilities is outside, neither. Okay. 3 possibility is like that. 1 circle is inside the other. Sorry, I made it too tiny. But 1 possibility is that it's inside both circles. The second possibility is that it's inside the outer circle, but not the inner circle. And the third possibility is that it's outside both circles. Right? So this inner circle is dog. The outer circle is animal. So Snoopy is inside both circles. Shamu is inside the larger circle, but not the smaller one. And a pen is outside both circles. So there's 3 possibilities. Mutually inclusive, the 2 circles completely overlap. So any given thing is either inside both circles or outside both circles. And mutually exclusive, the circles don't overlap at all.
That's great. I love that. I made a copy of it for me. Cool.
Good. This is in the book too. He does draw it this way. It's really interesting. Everybody's different. Everybody's different. I personally find this more confusing, but that's just me. That's just me. Now, 4 possibilities without anything that is neither is four possibilities, but you exclude this one. So really, there's only 3 options, really, 1, 2, 3, but we still call it 4 possibilities because of the way the circles are arranged. 3 possibilities without something that is neither, you exclude this one. So again, really, there's only 2 possibilities there, but we still call it 3 possibilities because of the way the circles are arranged. So if the circles are arranged like this, it's 4 possibilities. If the circles are arranged like this, it's 3 possibilities. I made it too tiny, but you guys can see that there's a little circle inside the larger circle, right? Yeah, that's the idea. If the circles are arranged like this, it's mutually inclusive. If the circles are arranged like that, it's mutually exclusive.
I wonder then, or is this just going to be more confusing? I wonder then, is to get kind of 3, so you say it's A, and this goes back to your corners. I said, well, I maybe visualized the corners wrong, but for 3 possibilities, you would say it's A, which is 1, and B, which is 2, and it's A but not B, which is the third. So then you get 3 kind of.
Yes. Let me show you visually the 4 corners. Hold on.
That's the only way I could get 3. It's A and it's B, and it's A but not B.
Exactly.
It's so complicated. I've never read this before or heard of this before. I obviously understand the theory and that, yes, it's that, but not that. But yeah, I've never heard of it explained theoretically like in this way. So it's like.
Right. You want to know something? In Tibet, the little children, the first thing they learn is how to read. The second thing they learn is this. Right? Isn't that something? Right? But it's just to be very, very clear, this is really complicated when we approach it. It is absolutely doable at whatever age. It's just a matter of practice, just a matter of practice. And then it's called the key that opens the door to all understanding. So there is that. Here's 4 corners. Okay. In one corner, you have things that are both A and B. In another corner, you have things that are A but not B. In another corner, you have things that are B but not A. And in another corner, you have things that are neither A nor B. Right? Now, if there's nothing in this corner, then you can say they're mutually exclusive. If there is something in this corner and something in this corner, then you can say that there are four possibilities. And then you check whether there's something that is neither or not. If there's something in one of these two corners, but not in the other, then you say that it's three possibilities. And if nothing in this corner and nothing in this corner, but there's something in this corner, then they're mutually inclusive. I'll say that one more time. If there's nothing in this corner, it's mutually exclusive and you're done. All right? So everything else I'm going to say assumes that there is something in this corner. Okay, so now let's assume that there's something in this corner. So now, if there is something in this corner and in this corner, it's four possibilities. If there's something in one of these corners, but not in the other, whichever way, then it's three possibilities. And if there's nothing in either of these corners, then it's mutually inclusive. And then finally, if you said that it's three possibilities, or if you said that it's four possibilities, then all you need to do is check whether there's something in this corner as well or not. If there's something in this corner, you're done. If there's nothing in this corner, then you add without anything that is neither. Okay. So here's what I'll ask you guys to do for homework. I'll ask you to catch up through chapter 5. But I'll ask you to do two more things. One is to go through and practice the exercises in chapter 4 over the course of the week, as best you can. As best you can. But the other thing is this: throughout the week, notice pairs of predicates, notice pairs of things, take them as predicates, compare them and label them. See if you can identify how they compare. So are they four possibilities, are there four possibilities without anything that is neither? Are they three possibilities? Are they mutually exclusive? Are they mutually inclusive? Right? And maybe what you can do is you can write down one example, either one example that you feel happy with or one example that you have doubts about, and then bring it in next time so we can figure it out together. How does that sound?
Sounds good to me.
Good. Good. All right. Well, we're off. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step, and we've definitely taken one step. So
Baby steps. Thank you.
good. Good. So this is fantastic, and we should rejoice if you're a Buddhist. From a Buddhist point of view, I mean, whether you're Buddhist or not, but from a Buddhist point of view, what we just did creates the karmic potential for us to have intelligence in future lives. So this is fantastic, right? So we can just dedicate, we could just think, however our minds have been affected by anything we've done over the last 2 hours, may it always shape us in ways that will bring us more and more compassion, more and more loving kindness, more and more determination to be free from suffering and to help others be free from suffering. And may it bring us more and more clarity of how things exist and how things work, and the ability to help everybody attain perfect happiness and freedom from suffering. Wonderful. All right, everybody. Great work. And I'll look forward to seeing you guys next week. All right?
Okay, hope to see you. You better come back, you all. Okay.
Yes,
All
you
right.
too.
Have a good
Thank
one.
you, guys. Thank you,
Thank you.
everybody.
Bye.